Hello everyone. So in today's video I'm going to be doing a little Tarot 101. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving a brief overview on how to use tarot cards, and then I'm going to go through and show you some of my tarot decks. So a couple of caveats. I'm not a tarot expert by any means. It's more of just a hobby for me, and I don't have like the meanings of the cards memorized or anything like that. So I had to kind of make some copious notes for myself. So I have my notes, and I'm going to be reading from them from time to time to refresh myself on different things. And as a footnote, most of the notes that I made for myself I got from biddytarot.com. So biddytarot.com is a really nice resource for tarot information. So let's go ahead and get started looking at these decks. So as you see, I have this little witchcraft box. I'm not a witch or a Wiccan, actually. My husband found this box at Goodwill, and I thought it would be a pretty box for my tarot cards. It just looks really cool. So if you open this up, this has all of my divination decks. So most of them are tarot decks. So this one, let's see if I can get in camera. Sorry, I'm not used to this phone setup here. Okay, here we go. So this is the one that I use most often. It's a very popular style of deck, the Smith-Waite Tarot deck. This particular version has some unique coloring, so all of the cards look a little sepia toned or tea stained, and they're really pretty. So this is my favorite deck, and one reason I like it is because of the symbolism in the Smith-Waite deck. So it's a really pretty deck, and it's filled with a lot of symbolism, and it's one of the more standard decks that you find. So this is my favorite deck, and it's also, these cards are very small and easy to handle. A lot of times with most decks, the tarot cards are just huge and they can be hard to shuffle. So this is more of the size of a standard card deck. Okay, so that's my favorite deck. And actually I'll show you these other ones later, so I will close these up for now, but these are all of my other divination decks, and I'll go through them in a minute. Alright, so now to talk a little bit about tarot. So like I said, I'm not an expert, but my understanding, or the way that I use tarot decks, is more of like a meditation tool rather than a divination tool. So in other words, I don't actually believe that they tell the future. They do more of just kind of capture the current situation and all of the influences that are affecting the current situation, and they kind of predict what will probably happen given all of these different factors and influences. And they don't really tell you anything that you don't already know. They kind of pull out your sort of unconscious knowledge and instincts and show them to you. So they don't really tell you anything that you don't already know, but they can kind of unearth things that maybe you don't want to think about, or unearth things that you might have hidden from yourself. So let's open up this deck. So it's a little tin. I keep this in my purse a lot of the time because it's pretty small. Let's see if I can do this without making too much noise. top is a little booklet. I don't actually use this very much because the descriptions of the cards are not very good in this little book. But I kind of keep it here just in case I don't have access to my other interpretation tools. And then here's the deck. So there are 22 major arcana cards and 52 minor arcana. I'm not sure how many minor arcana there are at the top of my head, but there are 22 major arcana cards corresponding to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So they're split up into what's known as major arcana and minor arcana. So major arcana is made up of 22 cards from the Fool all the way to the World, and they represent sort of life lessons, big archetypal themes that influence your overall soul's evolution, your journey, your personal journey to enlightenment and wholeness. So in a reading, if you find a lot of major arcana in a reading, it typically represents life-changing events, and it asks us to reflect on these very large spiritual life lessons and how they're playing out in our life right now. So let's go ahead and kind of go through the major arcana cards. So I'm going to flip them over one by one. So you start out with the Fool. Okay, let me see where I can put him. I'll put him right here. Let's see if you can see him. I'll put him a little lower. Let's see how we can stretch this. All right. Then the Magician. And I'll talk a little bit more about them once I have them laid out. Then we have the High Priestess. The Empress. The Emperor. The Hierophant. The Lovers. The Chariot. Strength. The Hermit. The Wheel of Fortune. Justice. The Hanged Man. Death. Temperance. The Devil. Let's see if I can squeeze these on the bottom. We have the Tower. The Star. The Moon. The Sun. Judgment. And finally we have the World. So this series of cards, you can imagine yourself or someone else on life's journey. So you start out as the Fool, which is complete innocence and naivete. And as you progress, you start to learn different life lessons. You start to learn about the masculine and the feminine, intuition, knowledge. You start to learn to kind of the structure and rules of society and how to live within society and follow those rules. Of course, you learn about love and sex. You acquire skill and power, and you kind of progress and learn about the capriciousness of fate, and you kind of progress further. And death is an interesting card. So death usually doesn't represent physical death of someone, but rather it represents sort of a spiritual death. So as you move through the cycles of life, and different situations and stuff end and new beginnings arise, and so this kind of represents the death of the old and the birth of the new. And then you go through times of weakness and materialism and greed, which the devil represents. The tower represents complete catastrophe. Sort of your whole world is upended, and then you go through a period of restoration, and then finally at the very end you achieve sort of spiritual enlightenment or wholeness in the world. So it just kind of represents the spiritual evolution of yourself. And what's also important to note is that a lot of these cards as a whole are cyclical. So you might go through different aspects of spiritual growth and enlightenment again and again over the course of your life. So when you reach the end of one cycle, another cycle can begin. So you'll see that trend a lot within tarot. So these are the 21 major arcana cards. So I'm going to pick these up really quick. Okay. So now we're going to go through the minor arcana. So the minor arcana cards, there are 4 suits. They're made up of very similarly to a regular deck of cards. So you have the pentacle suit, the cups suit, the swords, and the wands. And they're each made up of numbered cards from 1 to 10, and then 4 court cards. You have a page, a knight, a queen, and a king. So let's go ahead and look at the pentacles. So the pentacles are associated with the element of earth. So each suit is associated with a different element. So the pentacles are associated with the element of earth, and as such they have to do with sort of the very physical realm. So having to do with very external physical aspects of your life, such as your job, your health, your creativity. So it usually has a lot to do with finances, with your career, and kind of the earthly aspects of your life. So let's go ahead and look at the pentacles. So we start out with the Ace of Pentacles. Let me pull this down a little bit. So we have the Ace, the 2, 3 of Pentacles, 4 of Pentacles, 5 of Pentacles, 6 of Pentacles, 7 of Pentacles, 8 of Pentacles, 9 of Pentacles, and the 10 of Pentacles. And then we have our court cards. So I will put them, let's see if I can squeeze them here. We have your page, your Knight of Pentacles, your Queen of Pentacles, and your King of Pentacles. Okay. So they're numbered from 1 to 10, or from ace to 10. And the ace of any suit usually represents beginnings. So it might be the beginning of a career or some financial endeavor. And like the major arcana, it goes from beginning to end of the cycle. So you move through and you run into trials, but then you kind of slowly build up you work hard and you build up your financial security or whatnot. And at the very end is the culmination of all the good pentacle related stuff. So usually having to do with financial security and wealth and things like that. So again, it represents sort of the cycle of the suit. So like I said, from the beginnings to the conclusion of the cycle, event, or undertaking, it's the culmination and fullest expression. The 10 is usually the culmination and fullest expression of the suit, but not all 10s are good cards. So you'll see in the swords and the wands, the 10s are really not very good cards. The court cards usually represent either yourself or other people in your life. So pages usually represent a young woman or man. The knight usually represents an adult man. The queen usually represents a mature woman, and the king a mature man. The court cards represent people that embody the characteristics of the suit. So the King of Pentacles probably is very world-wise. Let me see if I can find, for example, the interpretation of the King of Pentacles, just to give you an idea. So, for example, the King of Pentacles represents wealth, business leadership, security, discipline, abundance. So it represents a person with those sorts of qualities. Okay, so those are the pentacles. I'll pick those up. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the Cups suit. So the Cups suit is associated with the element of water, and it represents the emotional aspects of your life. So relationships, love, connections with others, any sort of emotional issue is represented by the cups. So let's go ahead and look. So we have the Ace of Cups, the Two of Cups. Pull this down a little bit. Okay. The Three of Cups, the Four of Cups, the Five of Cups, which is a very sad card. So sad. The Six of Cups, the Seven of Cups, the Eight of Cups, Nine of Cups, and finally the Ten of Cups, which is also a very happy, fulfilled card regarding emotional things. So those are the numbered cards, and then we have our court cards. So here's the Page of Cups, the Knight of Cups, the Queen of Cups, and the King of Cups. Okay. So those are the cup cards. Ta-la! And so I'm going to go ahead and pick those up. Okay. All right, and then we're going to move on to the swords. So I've always thought that the pentacles and cups, as far as their overall meaning as a suit, were very intuitive. So the pentacles look, their symbol looks a lot like money, and so you can kind of remember that has usually to do with money, finance, and material security. The cups, you have the cup with the water, and water usually represents emotions and things like that, so it's very easy to remember. The swords and the wands, I always had the hardest time remembering what their suit meant, because to me they're not very intuitive. So the swords is associated with the element of air, which if you're familiar with astrology and things like that, you know that the air signs and so on generally have to do with the intellect and the mind. But the sword suit in general usually symbolizes conflict and strife. So many of the cards are very, very negative. So what I found was that it symbolizes the balance between the intellect and power. So the cards have to do with knowledge, action, power, change, and the cards are generally associated with conflict, like I said, and strife, action, change, force, power struggles, oppression, ambition, and courage. So they're very powerful cards. But to me, the meaning of the cards generally doesn't it's not as intuitive, because to me I don't associate conflict and strife with the mind and the intellect, right? But let me go ahead and pull these cards out for you. So here's the Ace of Swords, and to me I always thought that the swords suit would be more apt to the wands. The swords would be more apt to the fire element, but what do I know? I didn't make these. Okay, so the Ace of Swords, we have the Two of Swords, we have the Three of Swords, which is just heartbreaking. It's horrible. It's a very sad card. We have the Four of Swords and the Five of Swords, which represents trickery and thievery, deception, bad stuff. The Six of Swords. Oh wait, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe this is the thievery and deception one. I always go by the pictures. I might have gotten that mixed up. Anyway, and then you have the Eight of Swords. You can see these are all just bad looking cards. They're not fun. Look at this guy. He's not doing too good. And then 10 of Swords. Look at this poor guy. And this card sucks. So the 10 in the suit really sucks. And then we have the court cards. You have the Page of Swords, the Knight of Swords, the Queen of Swords, and then we have the King of Swords. Okay, let me go ahead and pick these up. Alright. And finally we have the Wand suit, which to me is the least intuitive suit as far as the overall meaning of the cards. So I'm going to just read off some of this stuff, because like I said, to me it's not as intuitive, so I'll just read off what I have in my notes. So the Wands is associated with the element of fire, so it has to do with primal energy, spirituality, inspiration, drive, determination, strength, intuition, creativity, invention, ambition, and expansion. So those are a lot of concepts, but it has to, basically from my understanding, it has to do with sort of how you view yourself as far as your own personal drives, what drives you, how you see yourself, your ego, your own personal development. So they address what makes you tick. So like it says here, your personality, your ego, so your self-concept and personal energy. So if you have something with a lot of wands in it, a reading that has a lot of wands, it means that you could be seeking a greater purpose and meaning in your life and want to understand more about that need and projects related to personal development. And it can also have to do with career, but less financially related, and more having to do with just personal fulfillment and personal development, and fulfilling your ego needs. So again, this is all not very intuitive to me, but let me go ahead and show you the wand suit. So here's the Ace of Wands. Boop. The Two of Wands. Three of Wands. Four of Wands. Five of Wands. Six of Wands. The Seven of Wands. Eight of Wands. Nine of Wands. And the Ten of Wands, which you can see this guy's carrying a heavy load, and it's a little bit too much for him. So this also, the 10 of this suit is also not very good. So there's the 10 of Wands. And now we have our court cards. Here's the Page. And the Knight of Wands. And we have the Queen of Wands. And then finally, we have the King of Wands. Okay. So those are all of the tarot cards from Major Arcana through all of the Minor Arcana. So you'll notice I didn't go through the meanings of all these cards because that would take too long and it would be quite boring. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a couple of card layouts, the two of the more popular card layouts, and show you how I generally do a reading for someone. So when I do a reading, I will give the cards to the person and I'll let them shuffle the cards. I'll instruct them to shuffle the cards while they concentrate on whatever question they have. And I usually advise them, if they have a question, to phrase the question not as a yes or no question or what will happen question, but more along the lines of what do I need to know about this issue? So if I'm worried about my job, what do I need to know about my job? Or something along those lines. So rather than asking for a specific yes or no answer, you're trying to kind of ask the cards what you need to know about the situation. So then I go ahead and instruct them to shuffle the cards while thinking about their issue. Once they're satisfied with that, I'll have them cut the deck into 3 stacks from left to right while thinking about their question. So I'll go ahead and have them cut the deck into 3 stacks, and then I will pick up the stacks and lay out the cards. So one popular layout is just a 3-card reading, and it represents past, present, and future. So past, present, and future. So I didn't mix these cards up very well because they were all in order and I didn't shuffle them enough. So these are all cups, for example, and all in order. Okay, but it doesn't matter for the purposes of this. So you notice that some of these cards or all of these cards are upside down. So when you have a card that is upside down, what it generally means is that the energy of the card, so each card has a certain interpretation and certain energy in it. So for example, the Two of Cups generally represents a relationship between two people, usually positive. Let me see if I can find the meaning really quick. Unified love, partnership, mutual attraction. So a partnership of some kind, or a romantic attraction, or couple. So when the card is inverted or upside down, it means that the energy in that card, the interpretation, there's something blocking the energy in that card, and it can either be, say, completely repressed, or just something is slowing it down, or hiding it, or in some way blocking it. So usually there's a separate interpretation for the inversion of the card. So for example, for the Two of Cups, the inverted meaning is something like breakups or disharmony or distrust. So there's something going on that is negatively affecting sort of the whatever attraction or partnership or romance is going on here. So often the negative or the inverted version is pretty negative, and can sometimes seem to be, to me, the opposite of what the upright version means, but it's supposed to be more of just that the energy is blocked or stifled. So past, present, and future, that's a common layout. And then probably the most popular layout is the Celtic Cross. So I'll show you that really quick. And again, I'll kind of shuffle these a little bit, so hopefully we won't get, the same cards. Like I usually do, and then pick them up. All right, I'll lay out the Celtic Cross really quick. So the first card of the Celtic Cross goes in the middle, and it generally represents the problem at hand, or the general atmosphere in which the question was asked. So it generally represents what the person is asking about. The problem or the question or the issue that the querent is inquiring about. And then you have the crossing card. And the crossing card sometimes represents obstacles to the issue. It represents whatever energy is blocking the energy of the main card. So it usually represents something, some sort of obstacle or something that you have to deal with. Okay. I'll lay down the next two cards. So this bottom card represents sort of the unconscious elements at hand. So they usually let me pull this down. Okay, sorry. The bottom card usually represents unconscious elements at hand. So often they can be issues that you're not aware of and are not conscious of, but are sort of driving some of the issue. And you can imagine moving from the unconscious to the conscious. So up top represents sort of how you see the issue. It could be your goals, like how you either want the issue to resolve itself or how you think the issue might resolve itself. So basically sort of what's on your mind, like how you're thinking the issue will play out. And then you have this card here represents recent past. Usually I think 3 to 6 months is usually the how far back it goes. And then you have the near future card. And Down here, this again sort of represents you and what you're bringing to the issue. It represents how you see the situation and what energy you're bringing to the situation. And then this card here represents how others view the situation, so external influences. So it represents what others are bringing to the issue and how others see it. Okay. And then this card represents your hopes or fears. So whether they are hopes or fears was generally determined by whether it's a positive or a negative card. And then finally you have your final outcome card. So again, like I said before, I don't really see these as a divination tool. Like it's not really going to tell you what's definitely going to happen, but rather what it does is it kind of says, well, look, given all of these influences, all of these cards, given your past, given your unconscious influences, given your obstacles, given, you know, what you bring to the situation, what others bring to the situation, what you're hoping or fearing, this is probably what's going to happen. This is where you're headed. And if you're not happy with that outcome, you know, you can choose to change aspects of your situation in order to avoid that outcome. So that's basically the Celtic Cross. Okay, and there are other different types of layouts, but I think these two are the most popular. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you some of my other decks that I have. Okay, I'm going to carefully put this back. All right. So first I'll show you this thing because it's just sort of fun. I don't actually really use this for anything. I don't remember where I found it. But it's a little tarot book, which again, I don't really ever use. But it has a teeny tiny little bitty little tarot deck with it. So if you open this up, if I can get these little guys out. It's really hard to get out. Oh, here we go. Oh, I think you're supposed to take all these apart, but I'm worried that if I take them apart that I won't be able to get them back in the box and then I'll lose some of them. But they are see if you can see them. I don't know, is it showing up? Here we go. It's a teeny tiny little tarot deck. So see, it has all of the cards. But as cute and adorable as it is, it's not really very practical. I think I might have been looking for a small deck to keep in my purse, and so maybe I had gotten this thinking, oh, this would be a perfect little size, but it's really not practical. I don't even know how you would shuffle such a teeny tiny deck, but it's very cute, so I hold on to it. So that's my little teeny tiny deck. Then let me see. Okay, so here are my other two tarot decks. And I do have one more deck that someone gave me, but I'm not going to go over that one because I don't quite understand the symbolism in that deck, so or the history behind it. So I won't go over that one. So these are my other two tarot decks, which I'll open up in just a second. And then I also have my Lenormand cards. Lenormand, I think that's how you pronounce it. But the Lenormand deck is not actually, they're not actually tarot cards. They're divination cards that I think were developed in the 19th century. And they're much smaller. Well, here's the little book. Here's the little book in this one. This one came with a little book. And it's a very small deck. And each card has a certain symbol on it, like the heart, or clouds, or clover. And they all have very specific meanings. And they're more specifically for divination rather than sort of the intuitive sort of meditation tool. So the tarot decks usually have a lot of symbolism mixed in each card. and so they have very sort of rich meanings for each card, whereas the Lenormand deck has a very like simple symbol on each card and a very specific meaning. And when you lay them out, you sort of lay them out so that each card is sort of part of a sentence, and you sort of like a subject and a verb and a whatever, rather than like past, present, or future. It's sort of like you make a sentence with the card and you use that to predict. But I've not really gotten the hang of the Lenormand reading yet, so I don't really use these very often because I'm having trouble understanding it. But here's another. This is my T-Bats Lenormand card, which is a really cool deck. It's a deck that some artist had made, but it's really cute. It's a ship, so each is like the little bats, and there's the heart. So it's super cute. Those are my Lenormand decks. Maybe at some point I'll try to do a Lenormand video if I get a better hang of these. But I'm going to put these aside for now, and then I have this. I had a couple of these just regular picture cards come with a couple of my decks, and I just threw them in there. Okay, let's see. So let me go ahead and show you really quickly my other two decks. So this one, I'm trying to remember the actual name, the Enchanted Tarot. That's the name of it. It's kind of very girly. It's very, very pretty. So this is the deck, and as you can see, it's more of a full-sized tarot size. You see how large the cards are. They can be hard to shuffle. But you can see some of the art here. Here's the King of Swords, the Queen of Swords. What's the style of art? I can't think of the name of it, where you take pieces of fabric and paper and put it all together. I can't think of them. My brain's not functioning, but you get the gist. But it's really pretty. And what's also interesting is, well, first of all, they use hearts instead of cups for the one suit. And then they also, for the court cards, instead of a page and a knight, they have a princess and a prince, which I think is a little more appropriate to sort of represent men and women. Like you have a young woman as the princess and an older woman as the queen, a young man as the prince, and an older man as the king. And I think that's a little more egalitarian than the page and the knight. But at any rate, so let me flip through some of the major arcana just to give you an idea. So there's the Fool there, and there's the Magician, and there's the High Priestess. Let me flip through some. So here's the Wheel of Fortune there, and there's the Star. That's a really pretty one. I think that my favorite one of this deck is the Moon. I really like the Moon card in this deck. So the Moon actually is not a very positive card. Whenever I see them in a deck, I always think they're so pretty, and you think, oh, the Moon is nice. But it usually represents sort of self-deception, illusion, trickery, things like that. So it's not really a very positive card. So this is my Enchanted Tarot deck. So like I said, it's a little girly, but it's very pretty. I like it a lot, and I've had it for years. And then my other deck I'm going to show you is my Vertigo Tarot. So if you are a comic book fan, you may be familiar with the Vertigo line of the DC Comics. So the Vertigo line is more of an adult comic book line. So Sandman is part of Vertigo, Hellblazer, what else? My brain is Swamp Thing, I think, is another one. Lucifer, which is an offshoot of Sandman, and some others. So I think they just discontinued Vertigo, that line, which made me very sad. So I don't know what's going to happen to all the comic books that were under this line. But anyway, years ago, they made a tarot deck based off of the comic books in the Vertigo line of comics. And Dave McKean is the artist. So Dave McKean is an artist that did all the Sandman covers, and he also does some other stuff, and his work is really sort of kind of surreal and ethereal and beautiful. So he designed the tarot deck, and a lot of the characters from this comic book line is included in the deck. So let me show you. I'll flip through some of them to show you. So there's the Fool, and I think this is from Hellblazer. I think this is supposed to be John Constantine, if you're familiar with the comic, or I think there's a movie and a TV show too. And the Magician. So this is from Books of Magic. That's Timothy Hunter, who is a wizard, mage, magician, whatever. The High Priestess. I don't know who that's supposed to be. The Empress. Some of these I don't really know who they're supposed to be. The Emperor. She's super creepy. Yes, the art is beautiful and kind of surreal, but some of it's kind of creepy. The Hierophant. I don't know if that's supposed to be Sandman. It might be. Or a dream. They're the Lovers. Chariot. Strength. There's the Hermit. And if you know any of these characters, you can feel free to share in the comments, because I don't know all of them. There's the Wheel of Fortune. There's Justice. There's the Hanged Man. And of course, Death is from Sandman. Death. And Temperance. The Devil, of course, is Lucifer from the comic book. And the Tower. I might just hit the major arcana on this one. And there's the Star. The Moon. And the Sun. And Judgment. There's a little baby. And then finally the World. And then you can see, I'll just kind of flip through. So here's some of the minor arcana. So it's sort of a dark deck. I mean, it's pretty, but it's a little creepy. So I really do enjoy comic book art. I'm always trying to find like the perfect tarot deck for me, which I haven't really found. I mean, like I said, this one's my favorite, and I really do like it a lot, but I'm always trying to find some like ideal, beautiful deck. A lot of the art for a lot of decks I find kind of chintzy looking. Like, I'm not really a big fan of the art, so I'm really picky about my tarot decks. I'm interested in looking at like handmade decks. Well, not, you know, completely handmade, but like kind of indie decks, I guess. Ones that are created by like artists and stuff. I think those are fun to find, like on Etsy and things like that. So this was my tarot video, my Tarot 101. I hope that it was enjoyable, and if you didn't know anything about tarot, I hope you learned a little something. Like I said, I'm not the biggest expert, and I may have gotten some things wrong. If I got something wrong, be sure to let me know. But I really enjoyed that. I've been wanting to do this particular video for a while because I really love my tarot decks, and I love talking about them and going through all the art and stuff. So I do hope you enjoyed that. go ahead and close up my box. And I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.